Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting, another wondrous Propagandacast with me, host Imperial Dane. Our 1 vs 1 awaits you on Kholodny Ferma. Kholodny Ferma shall be the scene of the fighting today. We shall be watching Thu Thuong Nam fighting for the Soviet Union and the 111th Rifle Division going up against JasonBourne of the Germans 210th Sicherungsdivision, supported by other elements nearby. A brutal fight anyway. Of course, this is straight after the patch, so I've pretty much got all of my replays thrown out the window, and I've only got a few, and pretty much none of them were actually really that exciting. But of course, ultimately, I had to make a decision, and this one was ultimately the best one. So we'll see, of course, what we can do with this, but, don't go expecting, a battle of titans at all, I'm afraid. I apologize, but again, sadly, not a lot of people sent in replays after the patch, and in some cases, they might have sent in the wrong one because it didn't work anyways. And ultimately, what I had to work with were 3 replays, and 2 of them were definitely Monday Novice stuff, to put it mildly. And one of them I probably wouldn't even use for a Monday Novice fight. Starting out here with an MG42 Grenadiers also arriving, quickly following up. But not really again a good idea to start out with an MG42 like that. And of course the MG42 has received a bunch of changes here in the patch. Takes longer to turn about, or at least with the MG. Some changes to damage and also some changes to suppression. It's a little fun fact there, little fun fact. No idea here why. And we'll just call him Boris, because I really can't pronounce that kind of name. My apologies to the sir, but not really within my realm of expression. Grenadiers quickly following up. Grenadiers securing the center. MG42 moving up, taking up position in the church. Nothing wrong in that. Southern approach. Nothing in the north so far except for the Germans sending up the pioneers. Another MG42. Some more of a stalling strategy so far here going on from JasonBourne. Again, not really the highest indicator of a strong, advanced player, because again he tends to sort of play more defensively, which I always find to be something that more indicates a novice player, or at least not a very strong player in terms of me, sort of more moderate players, or moderately skilled players. And already in fact tacking up, so again very defensive player, not very aggressive mindset, rather timid in fact one could argue. So, and of course he sets up another MG42 to cover the one already here covered. Not really bright thinking there, to be honest. Heinz, we could be pointing our Maschinengewehrs elsewhere. Nein! Because I say so. Yeah, not really clever thinking again. Yeah, I really wish I had something better to show you, gentlemen, but I have to work with what I have, not what I wish I have. That's always a good rule of thumb to apply also when you're playing the game. Don't cry for what you wish you had, just work with what you actually do have on your hands. And you tend to get a bit more creative, but you need fire support? Well, yeah. But a bit of barbed wire going on there. Nice idea, nice idea. So only going to block up the most direct path of movement. Points being secured here. Spreading out nicely. Conscripts for some reason continuing to stay in the church. Apparently they might still be practicing their religion in secret. Ah. And like to make a nice company going up. Germans pushing south. Mines going up. Lovely, lovely. Good to see some mining. Conscripts are standing out. Got lots of things. Basically standing out, doing nothing. Not really good. Looks like a support weapon company going up. Troops are getting engaged. In fact, he's got himself a second squad of combat engineers. So 3 conscripts, 2 combat engineers retreating from here. Realizing there's not much you can do. Good job, good job. Troops standing about here really shouldn't. And the like to make a nice company is up for JasonBourne. He needs to do something with it. Schnell. In fact, getting a pack right away. I mean, he's tacked really fast. I have no idea why he thinks he needs a pack that quickly. We'd better off with the scout car, because I mean the only sort of vehicle that might arrive this quickly is another scout car, and the German scout car can handle that if you know your handle itself will. And of course you could also get some panzer gunners. But already here we are seeing that JasonBourne is perhaps not exactly thinking about what's actually happening what his opponent is doing, which generally is never really a good sign either if your opponent or if the player sort of works too much according more to an idealized plan he has in his head instead of also taking into account what the bloody hell his opponent is doing. I mean, right here, this would be, be a great opportunity, Heinz, yeah, bring up the Granatenwerfer. I think we will have some fun with that church. But apparently that's not really happening. Again, what JasonBourne is doing is not really thinking about what's going on. He's working across, again, an idealized plan. Which, again, is not really what I would expect to see from any sort of good player. It also tends to highlight, the novice players in particular that want to play a lot of team games and rely on others. They tend to work more across sort of an idealized plan that doesn't really take much into account on the actual battlefield. And here we see, of course, rushing straight for an armored car and upgrading it right away. I mean, it does provide some extra anti-infantry, but I mean, unless you're really certain, I wouldn't necessarily suggest right away going for it anyways. But apparently, he did right away. Again, he's clearly operating with the idea of scout cast, but there's absolutely no confirmation of it. And now he's getting a third machine gun. Again, a third machine gun. He's only got one squad of panzers. He's got 2 squads of infantry and now 3 machine guns. And of course he's going to need to get out of there, but already here, Boris gets up and quickly lobs an anti-tank grenade at it. Not really good position either. I mean, he placed it in an area where he couldn't really maneuver it out of there. JasonBourne really needs to think about what he's doing now. He's exposing the rear of the scout car to the rifles, to the Mosin guns, and there we go, main gun destroyed. Again, not really thinking it through, here, Mr. Bourne. Might the scout car make it? Panzer Grenadiers quickly following up the Sturmgewehrs. Actually, small arms weapons have received some changes. Panzer Grenadiers, and shock troopers, and then some 4th unit actually received some changes. Overall, I am not 100% sure what they do, but basically I think make them slightly less lethal overall. Or in some cases slightly less lethal in different parameters. It's a bit hard to say without a direct explanation. Other changes involve the H-35, which now moves slower and turns slower, which is good. Heavy arm also receives some changes. The IS-2 now does more damage. Tiger shoots slightly faster, accelerates slightly faster, but overall moves slower. And I'm less convinced about the Tiger change being positive. Otherwise, heavy armor has received a bunch of resource changes as well. Going to again caught in front of the Maxim. The Maxim also received some changes. And Grenadiers pinned to the ground. Also noting here, no upgrades for Grenadier squad at all, no machine gun, MG42 ready, again the third one, now getting a pack. Well, at least he's making some progress, he's pushing back the enemy, but also at the same time he's not moving. Again, don't have troops standing about, man. And I mean, really, had I not had nothing else to show, I really wouldn't have shown this one. Again, I'm going to be brutally honest about this. This is, more mundane. I was fine, and doesn't necessarily mean the Soviet player is bad, but, the German player is really making that many silly mistakes. It really doesn't make sense. Hell, I might not even show it from Monday Novice Fight, because again, it's the sort of, working on an ideal plane rather than what's actually going on. For heaven's sake. And this MG42 needs to get away. It's getting mortar, and of course, nice response here from Boris in getting the mortar, but finally moving the Panzer gunners up, MG moving up there as well. Combat engineers could also, be doing something, but apparently have decided against it. And not sure why he insists on retaining that squad of conscripts inside the church. Rushing up the conscripts here, half-track rushing ahead, but getting upgrade the flamethrower, but isn't ready yet. I mean, really? At least, try to think about it a bit. I mean, don't just run a half-track like that in, between infantry, your anti-tank grenades without having the upgrade ready. I mean, that was just pointless. And so now the Guard infantry arrives here for theory. Oh, yeah, bloody well, I forgot about the doctrines. My apologies, but again, I'm not really happy about this. But for example, here, Tiger's got more expensive in manpower, but cheap on fuel. Half-track goes down. That was pretty much those resources downright wasted by Jason. So not really good there, not really good. Time to look at Boris, who's gone for the Guards 5 combined arms. No vast surprises. But again, troops standing out. Again, the sign here of more novice stuff. When he easily could be moving about, taking points, doing something. But again, something's not happening at all.
Replacements have arrived. Be stern.
Charging in here, Mortar not really doing much. He could have put time to pop some smoke first, you know, to cover this approach. Since, you know, he must have had some idea, you know, alright, there's an MG42 in there. I knew that from before, but apparently he forgot that.
Waiting for your command.
And again, lots of things standing about, lots of things doing nothing. He could be rushing for armor right now, but that's clearly not happening either. Losing ground as the fascists advance of the Sicherungsdivision. Security divisions were usually formed out of several elements. One element being the Landesschützen, which were usually very, very low quality German infantry, basically older men. Meant for holding important positions. Largely equipped with rifles, had very light machine guns and mortars and other support weapons. There would also then usually be a police battalion component, which was usually something a bit better, although depending on the proximity to the front line though. Closer to the front line you usually got better troops, better police troops to this, better trained and younger. Farther away from the front there were usually reserve police battalions with older men, less well training, mainly stuff for policing and handling less than, you know, warlike stuff like shooting up Jews. Although of course as the front line approached, of course they were thrown into the battle as well. Most security divisions really didn't perform very well, but ultimately they were forced into it. But little fun fact there.
Conscripts here.
Little fun fact. Also they would usually have some assortment of captured armoured cars or older tanks with them as well. In some cases the police battalion would actually have been replaced with some Eastern cavalry units. So, yeah. Bit of discussion there. Jason, you're not really paying attention, it seems. Again, not really. I mean, mistakes can happen, but considering the overall other play, I mean, it's not really promising. And again, I have to say, this is really the best there was. It was either this or nothing at all today.
Enemy contact.
No idea why you rushed into a conscript squad into this small shack. Not really, you know, entering in here again. You know, engaging a guard squad with a scout car like that. Not really a good idea, but you know, JasonBourne did it because JasonBourne apparently doesn't think very much of unit preservation. Finding some armor on the way here from Boris, and not even taking cover with his panzer grenadiers. Again, JasonBourne has a lot of things to learn, a lot of them. He could easily have been moving up here and they would have been able to do bollocks, but again, it's not happening. And now we are seeing some conscripts being equipped with submachine guns. Conscripts hitting the dirt and getting blasted quite a bit there. Losing to the panzer grenades who do a bit more damage, but they are less accurate. But you know, overall I suppose could do a bit more damage in some regards. But they need to retreat, retreat, retreat. Come on, Jason. Rückzug, du dummer Hund. Or we'll have you transferred to the Leningrad front.
What do you need?
Ach, mein Gott.
Ready for orders. Mortar crew ready. Mortar rounds incoming. T-34 here. T-34 has been fired on. T-34 reporting. You need light and
Grenadiers for some reason rushing straight at a T-34. Come on, Jason. Again. And let me let you in on another secret. Games like this are, you know, a lot of those I actually don't end up casting because there's a lot of this stuff, you know, the really painfully obvious. You really ought not to be doing this. Why are you doing this? Why are you even bothering sending it in? And yes, again, it's very harsh. It's very harsh, but at the same time, you get a lot of these, you know, why didn't you cast my game sort of stuff? And, you know, I have to be ultimately brutally honest, I suppose. I mean, it doesn't have to be you playing poorly, but I mean, if the opponent really ends up playing rubbish, well, then there's nothing really much to do now, is there? Soviet player, of course, pushing forwards bravely. T-34 here, pretty much having the time of his life inside his opponent's space with the T-34. Finding out the support armor caught up. Mortar also went down. MD-42 here, getting hammered as well, not pulling it back. Strafing run going in, of course, he's gone for the assault support. Pack arriving. And a Panzer IV rolling in as well from a nearby Panzer Division. T-34 needs to get out of there.
Mortar here. Anti-tank rifle ready. Yes, comrade.
Groups are reinforcing. So a player did a good job in actually pulling back his tank.
Ready. Fresh meat has arrived.
The enemy has taken our supply sector.
Troops reinforcing, but again he's got a huge force standing about doing nothing. Nothing. Again, that really shouldn't be happening.
Need something demolished.
And his combat is not moving in. It's too slow reaction times there, I feel like. And again, at that best, I would keep you more for the Monday novice stuff.
Now even Yuri can hit something. T-34 ready.
But upgrading a lot of his conscripts with submachine guns. Good job. Field gun up as well.
Comrades, we are losing territory. Hospital at headquarters.
But generally, you don't really hear much about the security division. But you know, they did play a role in the Eastern Front, in particular after the collapse of the German front line of Operation Bagration. They were usually rushed in to sort of plug things up. Alongside another less talked about unit, the Valkyria regiments, which were basically the last remaining reserve divisions, usually, you know, reserved for holding the German homeland, formed up and sent to the front line. Reasonably well trained, but you know, not really well equipped for frontline action. They were sent off to reinforce different units at the front line, infantry divisions, panzer divisions, so on. Nice flank here, at least, you know, overwhelming the MD-42 through sheer numbers. Strafing run in, stopping all the infantry from moving on. Well responded there. Panzerkampf moving on, but packs all been cleared out. And again, here's another problem for Jason. He's spreading out support units far, far too much, with nothing to guard them. And again, why's that? Because he's lacking in infantry. I mean, Jason's really just cropping up with mistakes and the bad ideas.
What?
And now he's relying on 2 squads of panzer gunners. He's not recruited his mortar, for example, and there's plenty of other things that really haven't seen much usage. And the Panzer IV, for example, is not pushing much on either.
The sector is at risk.
At least he's making some progress down there, but really overall, Jason needs to pick it up and get moving, man.
LMG team ready. Field gun standing by.
Severe mining here going on. I mean, Boris, in that sense, you know, is actually doing a quite nice job in mining up, and he's also, you know, mining in a rather interesting way. He's, you know, realizing, oh wait, I might actually risk a tank attacking from the north. I'll be mining this. Good job. And certainly, I mean, that's really, you know, the primary reason I actually end up casting this, because, you know, Boris is, you know, making some good usage of mines, and there's some, you know, you can clearly see what's going on in his head when he mines, and he's, you know, not necessarily, you know, my name is Boris, I like Comrade Stalin. That's going on in his head, which is a certain comfort.
Enemy forces are attempting to capture our territory.
Mortar crew ready.
Yes, comrade?
Panzer IV needs to be pulled back quickly, or at least get some pioneers up there quickly.
Enemy forces are capturing our supplies. And
And where's the other Panzer Grenadier squad, you know, who might provide some support? And always point your tanks towards the enemy front lines. Don't have the rear exposed. That's the first thing your enemy might see. And here we go. Boris making a nice dual assault with his T-34s. Well done, well done. Recruiting the pack with his pioneers instead of getting something up to repair the Panzer IV first. Oh, good lord. And actually lobbing a bundle grenade. Come on, Jason. And it's time for the mid-game analysis. Current situation is sort of back and forth. German player somehow actually managed to push forth, but that's actually because in one sense he's actually a decent aggressive pusher of flanks, which is alright, but again he lacks infantry. And he lacks a lot of things, including hang on. Common sense in unit preservation, decent tactics, and of course he's spreading out too far, which is actually allowing him to, of course, gain a lot of territory, but he can't actually hold it, and then he ends up losing a lot of units because Jason apparently doesn't know when to retreat. And that, of course, something he needs to work on, and what he needs to do is actually pull together his front. He needs to decide what part of the map do I actually bloody well want to hold. Jason is simply too greedy. Jason needs to stop being greedy, or he's going to lose, or at least lose more worse than he already is, it seems. I mean, I would recommend him getting out some more armor, and I would recommend him organising it and keeping it together with other units. Currently that's not happening. Again, there's too many things spread out too thinly. Support units with flanks clearly exposed. And he's not really pushing hard either. And I mean, Boris is certainly doing more, but he's also quickly losing ground, of course, quickly forced back. So I mean, he needs to do something as well. He needs to push, a bit more at the flanks in response to Jason. He might want to simply getting another conscript squad equipped with submachine guns and just have it pushed down here in the south. That might actually do a trick or two. Getting more T-34s, and of course you could also use those. I mean, this one with Veterans 1 can of course now be used to capture territory, so that of course is a nice little ability he might also, want to consider. And I would also recommend, that Jason actually makes use of his doctrine besides strafing runs. I mean, that's, the sign again, and we're not very imaginative player. He gets a doctrine simply for one ability and pretty much fails to use the entirety of the rest of the doctrine. No blitzes, no field officers. I mean, come on, Jason. At least give me one reason not to, want you sent off to Stalingrad as a private. But back to the fight, back to Jason. Panzer Grenadiers need to retreat, come on! But no, looks like they are another victim of Jason. Oh wait, looks like some poor bastard managed to escape, and these pioneers are not being retreated back for reinforcements. Pioneers that are saying about here as well. He's got 3 squads of pioneers now.
Pioneers ready for anything.
Again, I'm not really feeling very confident in Jason.
Well done. We have forced the enemy down to 200 points.
Not at all. A lot of quiet, a lot of standing about. Again, I really don't like, a lot of standing about. And again, this is usually what sort of quickly props something up for a Monday novice fight. But even then again, I'm not even sure I'd use this for a Monday novice fight. And certainly again, I really, don't like having to say all of this. I feel awful, but at the same time, there's not really much else to say in this fight. That's the problem. And again, I get all these people, wondering, well, why don't you cast my game, Dano? What's the waiting time? And again, there's no waiting time. I get a lot of replays, and, sadly, a lot of them, are not very good. I mean, there's a lot of factors going on. Of course, I'm going to make a video on it, but, even then, this is, I suppose, part of the explanation, part of the reasoning. Sometimes it's not wrong with you, but, you just went up against a really daft opponent. You might feel, well, I won, that's great, yes. But your opponent was the equivalent of a man with a head full of porridge. I mean, technically skilled porridge, but, ultimately not really good decision making, and clearly, not really something I want to show, because it's certainly not exciting in a sense to watch, at least not for me. And that's certainly also plays a factor in it. But Panzer IV rubbing through, Minefield, doing quite nice. Also note here what he does. He doesn't immediately throw the anti-tank grenade. He actually goes for the rear of the tank first before lobbing it. That's actually a good move there by Boris. Launching another assault after the two T-34s here got blown up. Recruiting the pack again. Infantry moving up. Quickly, schnell, schnell. You know. Fast, fast in Russian. Fastski. Whatever. Get them moving! And finally, Jason actually support his panzers, or at least also obey a bit belated. At least he got some panzer grenades up with punch strikes, which were able to fend off the T-34. Well done. A flying tree.
Don't let them flank us!
He could call in a fragmentation bombing run straight here, but that's clearly not happening either.
The enemy has broken our supply lines.
On the flank! They're killing my crew!
Enemy infantry has made contact.
Strafing run moving in. Wow, that strafing run did absolutely nothing, and I have no idea why he's returning two squad of panzers versus all this infantry again. JasonBourne, your unit preservation and your assessment of situations is absolutely rubbish. I mean, he's just wasting units left and right. I'm amazed he's managed to hold on this long, but of course I suppose that also says something about Boris here.
Enemy troops are taking
Ultimately. There we go, strafing run this time actually just does something. Panzer 4 not receiving a single repair. Units dying left and right. Austin flak panzer on the way.
Shit, they're shooting at us.
And a unit wiped out by the Soviet strafing run, which actually can do that quite nicely. And of course again, JasonBourne making the same mistake, not pointing the front of the tank towards where the enemy might come from. I mean, don't expose the rear like that.
Our panzer forces have been reduced by one. Enemy contact! Straight one available.
And now Jason's pretty much lost everything he has, because that's apparently Jason.
The enemy is firing on our HQ.
Pack here.
Enemy forces are securing our territory. The squad of pioneers has arrived.
Might as well just speed this up a bit.
Enemy contact!
Getting another half track. I'm not entirely sure since he doesn't nearly have much left to reinforce. And again we get, you know, a reason why, you know, JasonBourne might be holding on. Again, Boris here just needs to get bloody well moving, but several times he just has stuff standing about doing nothing. I mean, he's not really, you know, he's lacking, you know, part of that essence of being aggressive, which is, you know, bloody well moving. Aggressive does not mean standing about. Aggressive, you know, means moving your legs. Not moving your legs is the opposite of aggressive. That's passive. You're not playing as the French in World War I. This is World War II. Get bloody moving, Boris.
Yes? Half-track awaiting orders.
Getting another flamethrower half-track upgrade. I mean, I'm again getting that impression that JasonBourne isn't really paying attention to what's actually going on.
Our opponents are seizing a sector.
And I can only imagine that the men under his command must be extremely frustrated by him. And don't blob up, Boris. Don't blob up. I mean, really. Don't send replays in me with you blobbing up.
Taking
I mean, really, that ought to be a big no-no. You ought to know how much I loathe blobbing. How depressing it is to see. And of course, remember, you know, there's still the Sunday Officer Challenge. I've thankfully not received the replays because I was hoping to null and void. But again, send in a replay of you actually using the Field Officer either from the Assault Support or from the Joint Operations Doctrine to propagandacast@gmail.com. Mark it Sunday Officer Challenge. And, you know, be sure to send in. You might get featured if there's actually some good usage of the officer.
Loaded and ready.
Off. Artillery up, good job. I suppose he wants to close it off, but, you know, it's not really necessary to have that close to the enemy's front line. I mean, this map is pretty small. The Howard actually has a pretty nice range, but... And there we go, half track down. Again, JasonBourne not really thinking much, it seems.
Boston standing by.
And again, he's only used one ability in his doctrine.
MG-42 team is ready for action. Enemy forces are securing our territory. Our
Dead.
brave infantry is dying.
HMG here.
Our forces losing the sector.
Further blobbing up, really, Boris? Really?
We have 300 points remaining.
Thankfully, you've got an opponent who doesn't use the fragmentation bombing run, otherwise you might have just lost an entire huge infantry force.
The enemy is taking our territory.
Artillery continues to fire away with fury.
The sector has been cut off.
Another headless charge here from JasonBourne. Again, the man seems to loathe thinking. Now using the fragmentation bombing run of all the times. Clearing out the howitzer, which is something, I suppose. But now ultimately doesn't really cut it. Since he's not making any gains. Speeding things up again.
We are fragmentation bombing can begin at any time.
And might as well just beat this up.
Our sector.
And there we go, game over. JasonBourne realised, you know, what he probably should have realised a long time ago. He's lost. Game over. Second extinguisher forced away. And, I mean, again, I really wish I had something better for you. But again, this time around, there weren't anyone actually supplying any good replays or any, you know, above Monday Novice fight quality replays. And again, remember, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be about you. It also has to be about your opponent not being any good. JasonBourne, in this case, really would have dragged this on to, you know, I'm not really going to bother. I mean, I really didn't like, you know, Boris here blobbing up either. And that really wasn't, you know, a mitigating factor either. But again, trust me, the other replays were worse. And again, you know, I know people, you know, I'm just basically using this, you know, to sort of explain, you know, why I might not end up casting replays, you know. Again, that rule, you know, don't wish, you know, for what, you know, don't complain about you don't have, work with what you have, and that's what I'm doing here. And I'm using this opportunity again, you know, to show, you know, why I might not end up casting a replay. And again, a lot of the replays basically somehow come down to this. Some ideas, but ultimately nothing awfully interesting, nothing really standing out in many regards. This had even some good mind usage, but that was about it. There was some blobbing, and again, the opponent was pretty much bland and not very good either. I mean, he wasn't even, you know, interestingly bad. He was just bad. Like a cheap product bought from some store which really doesn't taste of much of anything. And that's even worse, you know, just, you know, being interestingly bad, because then you have something interesting to point out. But here, there wasn't even that. So again, my apologies, but hopefully this might answer some of those people who keep going on, well, why didn't you cast my game, Dame? Because, you know, it ended up looking like this in some way. Or some other. I mean, ultimately, and again, this is very important, just because you felt it was exciting doesn't mean it's actually exciting to watch. And again, I know I'm being harsh, I know I'm being unfair, I'm probably being a bit of a prick, but it's one of those things that actually end up getting a bit on my nerves, and I'm going to be honest about it. I mean, again, don't, bother me about it, constantly asking why didn't you cast it. In fact, if anything, it's make me less likely to cast your game at all. I mean, keep sending on in, do so, feel free to do so, but also, show some improvement between replays, because if I keep getting the same guys sending in pretty much the exact same replay without even the slides of improvement, I'm not going to bother either. I mean, I try to keep track of names, I try to keep track of, who sends in what and what and what, but ultimately, I'm going to go with what actually works. I'm going to go with the ones who actually show off something interesting, ultimately. Because again, this is, not just about, teaching, it's also about entertainment. It's about providing something interesting, and ultimately you need interesting players to do that, even if they're interestingly bad. And again, a vast majority of replays in it are not very interesting. Again, I apologize, I'm a terrible person, I know, but I have to be honest about that. And of course, I'm going to make a video sort of also showing, how many replays, a bit more of the process of actually designing one, but again, this one is more exemplifying, hang on, why I don't end up casting a game of yours. And again, this was an example, I suppose, in a sense, because I didn't have anything to work with. I wish I did, but I didn't. And again, always go with that rule of thumb, don't wish for what you want to have, work with what you have. Always do that, and of course I did. And hopefully, some people learn something out, and of course that's good. I hope to bring something infinitely more entertaining tomorrow. I'll probably even do, during the weekend, I'll even do 2 episodes. I'll also have a smaller video up tonight, but I'll probably make up for this somehow later in the week when I've got a bunch more interesting replays up. So probably expect an extra replay here in the weekend to make up for this one. I promise I will make up for this one. I had no choice, but I had to. So there you go. Cheers.